Welcome to the Vol Bros. My name is Evan. This is my brother Rustin. We are two Vol Bros who are actually bros in real life as well. Uh, this is a special episode. This is our 50th episode, and the fireworks go off in the background. This is our 50th episode of the Vol Bros. Our very first episode was November the 2nd, 2022. So if you do the math, we're averaging a show every 4.7 days. That's not bad. So, very excited to be doing our 50th today. And we are, first of all, going to talk about the Oma Vols just finished up top six place season. What was your overall reaction to their season this year, Rustin?
I mean, I don't think anybody can ever complain when you finish in Omaha. We've posted this and we've said it before. There's 295 Division I baseball programs. If you're in the final eight, you've had a heck of a year, regardless of what happens. Went 44-22. Tony Vitello makes it to the Super Regionals for the third time in really 5 years. It's technically 6, but really 5.
Because of 2020 COVID year.
Yeah. And honestly, if the COVID year we had actually played, he probably would have made the Super Regionals that year because that was one of his most talented rosters. So Tennessee's been to the Super Regionals 5 times in school history. 3 of those are under Tony Vitello in the last 6 years. So the program is just in incredible condition. They just announced $100 million worth of upgrades to the stadium and the stadium surroundings. Tennessee is becoming the place to be in college baseball.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go to Omaha, it's hard to say it was a failed season. People, were in their feelings a little bit the night that they lost on Twitter, but I mean, my goodness, if you finish the season and you've been in Omaha, you're in the top 8 in the country. They actually ended up top 6. There's no way you can say that was a failure of a season. It's incredible that they made it that far. Absolutely incredible. Overall, I mean, you can't ask for more other than just winning the whole thing. And they just didn't have the bats to do it this year. I think if everybody, looks back over the season, you can see improvement defensively. You can see improvement in a lot of areas. It's just timely hitting and the bats. I mean, that's why everybody loves Zane Denton the last couple months of the season because he was the timely hitter. Christian Moore got hot there for a while. Zach said, "What's up, Vol, bro?" Hey, Zach. And he said, "Hey, I appreciate that, Zach." He said, "Congratulations. Here's a 50 more." Absolutely. I totally appreciate that, man. We've loved having you along with the ride here for 50 episodes, Zach. We appreciate you, buddy. Yeah, anytime you go to Omaha, that's a good year. That is an absolutely good year. A lot of rumors swirling right now, and I strategically chose the photo for the thumbnail to rile some folks up. So let it be made known right now that unless Rustin dishes out some serious money, I will be transferring to a Vanderbilt or LSU Bros station or YouTube channel.
Or TCU.
Or TCU. Yeah, that's right. Is this another Jalen Wright situation? What do you think?
Well, I think it's kind of already leaked out that it is a Jalen Wright situation, and we matched the dollar amount, and he's coming back.
Yeah, there was a tweet about that earlier today.
Who knows what reality is? Kids. I think sometimes we forget Chase Burns is a 20-year-old kid, and kids say and do things that a month later, even a week later, they regret. Who knows what actually happened? Do I doubt that anybody was tampering? Absolutely, people were tampering. The whole country's tampering right now. Like it's the wild, wild west. Hang
on. Let me clarify something about that real quick, just so everybody understands. If for some reason you're watching this or you come across this later and you're like, what are they talking about? Chase Burns. Rumors came out last night that Chase Burns was entering into the transfer portal. Then more rumors came out that Vanderbilt and LSU had both offered him a 6-figure deal, NIL deal. Now, when Rustin said tampering, Here's the thing: you are not supposed to contact a player until they are officially in the transfer portal. Chase Burns is not in the transfer portal, and people are already contacting him. At least that's what the rumors are. That's illegal. And so, if that's the case, then that would be considered tampering, and those schools would obviously listen. LSU don't have any room to be messing around right now with any kind of tampering, but that would obviously be against the NCAA rules and regulations. So that's what he means when he says tampering. Okay, go ahead.
Well, and again, not only are they reaching out, they're reaching out with dollar amounts. I mean, there have been very consistent dollar amounts in the six-figure range floated around
Right.
of what his offer was. And, when multiple people who aren't connected to each other are all making the same statement about dollar amounts, it's probably true. Um, you know, everybody in America is doing this right now. Tennessee is absolutely doing this right now. We just announced a transfer and it kind of leaked out in the announcement how we got him. So, this is not something that's unique to one school or another. This is what NIL has created, and this is what the NCAA cannot control at all. So I think this probably is a Jalen Wright type situation. I think he probably made some statements he probably regrets. I think there probably are offers on the table because he's one of the best pitchers in America, so there's going to be offers on the table. I don't think he had any intention of leaving. I'll be very surprised if he does. I think now that it's rumored that our NIL program has matched the offer, I think he's probably here for good. But I would also say this. In the middle of the season, Chase Burns got moved to the closer role because he was ineffective as a starter. And people who are so bent out of shape about him transferring or the possibility of him transferring, you don't follow college baseball. Because anybody who follows college baseball knows that these guys are transferring all over the country, left and right, looking for a better situation. And it's not, in most cases, it's not really changing the player or the team they go to. There's a couple of exceptions. LSU definitely is an exception, but LSU paid an insane amount of money to get the guys that they have. And so, because they've got a massive donor who's willing to help fund that, they can do some things in the portal that everybody else can't do. But if you look across the country, the large majority of guys who transferred this year didn't do anything overly spectacular and didn't help their team get better other than LSU.
Well, and let's be honest. I mean, if somebody just takes a step back and looks at the situation objectively, I mean, even reporters were asking Chase Burns at the end of the season, like about how he felt about moving to the bullpen, if he'd want to get back to starting. That was after the game that they beat Stanford in the College World Series. Standing on the field, they asked him that. So any coach sees a kid throwing 102 miles an hour with a slider that's unfair, and they know he might not be totally happy that he got taken out of his starting role, and then they hear that on national television, every coach is going to be contacting that kid. I mean, that's just, we should expect that. We should expect that. And he pulled a Van Gundy potentially, or Gundy, and Mike Gundy, and used it as bait and leverage to get up more money. I mean, that's just part of the situation. Zach said, if I transfer, I got to turn in my RHL. Dester, appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate it. 50 episodes, man. We're really excited. Zach said, you were mentioning LSU had Skeens and Tommy Tanks and some of those people who transferred in.
Thatcher Hurd.
Yeah, and they just got 24 put on them. Yeah, they did. That shows that this has been one of the craziest College World Series maybe ever, literally ever. And every game until today has just been phenomenal. So
But
I fully expect tomorrow night to be
even
good.
today was crazy entertaining because if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
if you're a baseball guy and if you really enjoy the strategy of it, watching LSU kind of decide back and forth, okay, are we really going to try to win this game? Or are we going to throw some dudes out there to be sacrificial lambs? And then when it got to about 10-3, it was like, okay, you three down there, you're throwing the rest of the game, and we don't care how many runs they score. And
Yeah.
and they just threw three guys out there who just got obliterated. It was
Carl
fascinating to
said,
watch.
well, tomorrow night's going to be an awesome game, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in a second. You can't leave when you're given a nickname of Burnsy by Vitello. See nicknames rule number 32, section C. Yeah, there's got to be a clause in there somewhere about that. That's exactly right. You're exactly right.
I'll be very, very surprised if he leaves. If he does, honestly,
yeah,
so
I think
what?
he's staying.
And that's probably a very unpopular opinion, but who cares? If he goes, he goes. If he is so close to leaving, if that's where his mind is, he's not going to help you next year. He's going to be a cancer in the clubhouse. He's going to be a guy that nobody wants to be around. You know, and just to be blunt, the production is good, but it's not incredible. He's not Paul Skeens. So you can go out and you can find a guy who can replace him and be adequate. And who knows, they may already have. So if he stays, wonderful. I hope he gets his mind right and everything works out. If he goes, so what?
Yep. I mean, you know, it's nice having 102 and a 90-mile-per-hour slider, but we, you know, what you just said is the thing. Like if it's going to constantly be known in the locker room that he's not happy, and that can do damage, you know. And so, yeah, I get that. Hopefully, you know, this was all a facade. Hopefully, if it was a facade, I'm sure Tony even knew about it, and you know, he got what he wanted, and so hopefully he's back fully on board, and he, you know, comes out and has a great last year. Because let's be honest, he's not sticking around after next year. He can be drafted after next year, so that's what he's going to do. Him and Drew Beam both. They'll both be drafted, and both probably be first-round draft picks. Zach said, "I hate both of them, but I want Florida to win because I hate LSU baseball more." Let's see.
I hope they saved a few swings, Zach, because tomorrow night they're going to see Paul Skeens, and
yeah,
not so sure they're going to do much.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, and Chris Burke even mentioned this on the broadcast tonight, and I totally agree with him because I was thinking this ahead of time anyway. I think Skeen starts tomorrow night, but he's on a pitch count and he doesn't get past 50 pitches. I think that's the situation. Now, in the heat of the moment, that might change, but I think what they're going to say going into the game is he doesn't go past 50 because he just threw like 120 or 119 Thursday. So, I mean, that's tough.
Want to make a bet on that?
I mean, I get a national championship is on the line. I get that. I get it.
Well, and
but also his career.
When Chris Burke makes that statement, he's talking about most pitchers. Paul Skeens is not most pitchers. Paul Skeens is built different. And Nolan Ryan was the same way. You know, Paul Skeens reminds me a lot of Nolan Ryan, the way he throws, how he attacks hitters. You know, guys who are built like them, they don't feel it. Like recovery is a non-issue for them. They go out and throw the next day. They don't care. They don't feel it. Well, I would bet money he'll go at least 7 innings, and it will be up to him when he comes out. That's who Jay Johnson is. I bet Jay Johnson every inning will go, "You done? Nope. Okay, go back." He'll leave it up to him.
So here's the thing. People are talking about like he's a generational talent, Paul Skeens. I don't even think that's high enough praise, honestly. Yeah. Because the game against Tennessee, he threw 46 pitches over 100 miles an hour. that's never happened ever. Like he's doing things that have literally never happened in the history of college baseball.
I think if radar guns had been accurate, Nolan Ryan would have done that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't think guns back when Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson and guys like that were playing. I don't think the guns were as good as they are today. They weren't the technology just wasn't there. So I think both of those guys probably would have put up the same kind of numbers that Skeens is if they had had better technology. But again, those are 1 in a million arms.
Yeah.
And
Carl said he doesn't lose velocity to 110 pitches. That's exactly
no,
right. Like, I mean, generational talent is the minimum compliment you could give the guy. I mean, he's literally doing things that we've never seen.
Yeah.
Zach said
not
they'll have
only
to rip the ball away, and then they still probably won't get it.
yeah, and not
You're right,
only
Zach.
not only does he not lose the velocity at 100 miles per hour, 110 pitches, it still looks easy.
Yeah.
Like when he's out there throwing, he's not trying at all. His body is so fluid and his arm is so loose, it just comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, Uncle Dave? That's our uncle. He said if Chase Burns does leave, like he said, no big deal. I'm sure Tony and company have no problem reloading. I totally agree. Because like Rustin said, Tennessee is becoming a destination for college baseball. I totally agree. People want to play for Tony Vitello.
We've got guys on the current roster that took a back seat this year that could have easily have thrown a lot more than they did and been very effective.
Yep. Let's see. Carl said, I was wondering if Blake Burke would leave. No, I don't think so. Not after the second half of this season. If he had finished the season like he did the first half, he might have declared for, because I mean, he's been out long enough. He could have declared for the draft because he redshirted a year.
It's his second year. He's just 2 years in.
Oh, I thought this was his third. I thought he redshirted a year.
All
right. Well, then he has to come back. But here's the thing: like, if he had stayed hot like he did the first half of the season, his name, people would have been coming after him too. But the fact that everybody figured out how to pitch to him in the second half of the season was just not good. Like, I mean, he had like 16 home runs in the first 2 months and then won the second 2 months. And it was a huge, I mean, it was 479 feet, but this next year is going to be Blake Burke having to prove to everybody that he can hit a slider low and inside or not swing at it. One of the two, like either lay off of it or actually hit the ball. Because if you go back and watch all of May, that's all everybody throwing sliders, breaking balls low and inside. That's what they did. And he chased it every single time. So
I wouldn't be surprised at all if Blake Burke comes back for his senior year. He is not, I mean, just to be blunt, there's a lot of really strong left-handed power hitters in the world. And so his draft status is never, ever going to be such that he's going to be like a first or second rounder. People don't draft left-handed power hitting first baseman in the first and second round. It's just not done. So I think they can actually keep putting together NIL packages where he could actually stay all 4 years pretty easily and do fine, and then eventually go get drafted. Honestly,
and let's be honest, that you just hit the nail on the head. Put together NIL packages. I mean, we already know that's going on, but players are counting the cost of will I make more money if I stay or if I go? And I mean, you think about, I always go back to Cade Mays. 3 years ago, Cade Mays, when he was asked if he was staying or going, he straight up said, well, if I can make third round money, I'm going to stay. But if I can't make that, I'm going. Like, he straight up said that. So in an interview. So,
yeah,
I mean, that is the world in which we live in college sports now.
I mean, even a great example, Jack Caglione at Florida. They're not sure he's leaving. I mean, the man's leading the entire country in home runs right now. But he's a power hitting left-handed first baseman. He's not fast enough to play outfield in the majors. So, I mean, they're even talking about him like he's gonna test the draft waters. But if he doesn't like where he gets picked, he'll probably come back to Florida and just get a good NIL deal.
Charlie said probably make more NIL than a rookie contract for for Blake. Yeah, I mean, sure. That's exactly right. That's the way it is with a bunch of people now, is that they can make more through NIL, because think about it, they're loved at these places. So people don't want them to leave, and that includes the boosters and the donors. And so they'll find NIL deals for these guys. That's exactly right. There were two questions that came through that I think are going to lead perfectly into our last segment here. Zach said Maui's gone, right? And Carl said a lot of sophomore bats turning juniors. So let's talk about that. Those two questions. Dester just said, my wife said last night, who do you hope that wins? The thought of wanting Florida to win is really hard. Amen, brother. Amen. Seeing the fans do the gator chomp in the stands today, I was about to gag. It was horrible.
From a strictly East-West perspective, I guess we pull for LSU, but you also have to keep in mind when football
one more year.
Yeah, when football eliminates divisions, pretty much everybody's eliminating divisions. And do we really want LSU, who has gone out and bought a world championship, which is what they've done, to see that works? And that donor who's creating all those packages says, here's an empty checkbook, do whatever you want. And, all of a sudden every year LSU is just going out and raiding the portal for the 3 or 4 or 5 best players, paying them obscene amounts of money, and winning the College World Series every year. So I'm not so sure. It might be a beneficial thing if Florida does win tomorrow, just to get that donor to kind of back off his pocketbook a little bit.
Maybe the NCAA would be like, we decided not to play it. That'd be the best scenario. I'm sure that'll happen. Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen.
Eternal rain out.
Yeah, exactly. So our last topic was who's coming back for Vol baseball next year. Like what's on the horizon? We know that the pitching staff is going to be fine. Yeah, they're losing Chase Dolander, they're losing Seth Halverson.
And Andrew Lindsay.
And Andrew Lindsay. I mean, that hurts. Like that can't not hurt. But they've got, we think, Chase Burns returning. They definitely have Drew Beam returning. Well, that doesn't stink for two guys right there. They just had the kid transfer from Jacksonville State that a bunch of teams wanted. So, I mean, they at least have a weekend rotation set up.
I'll be fascinated to see if AJ Causey starts. So Jacksonville State transfer AJ Causey, considered the top changeup in America. He has both started and closed at Jacksonville State. So if the deal with Burns is that he gets to go back to being a starter, technically that means we need a closer. So AJ Causey may be moving into that role. It'll be interesting because I think the other thing they have to work with is they do have AJ Russell. They got Hollis Fanning. Like I'm a big fan of Hollis Fanning. I think he gets the short end of the stick. The dude comes in every 2 to 3 weeks and throws mid to high 90s like it's nothing. I think they've been holding on to him for a while, expecting at some point he would become a starter. And then there's also Xander Sechrist. Like, is that dude going to be the midweek starter for his entire career? They've got options.
Zach, I think, is referring to the kid from Jacksonville State. And yeah, there were definitely a lot of highlight tapes going around to him this past week after he announced. And let's look at the infield for a second. We know Blake Burke is returning. We know Christian Moore is returning.
Maui's gone.
Mr. John. Well played, sir. Well played. Mr. Jones always brings the A game when it comes to the dad jokes kind of stuff here. I love it. It's great. Chase Burns can make you chase or burn it by you. Nice. Well played. Well played, sir. Maui is probably gone, which we could debate if that's a wise decision by him or not. But I mean, he's probably gone. Zane Denton is gone.
I don't think so.
You think he's coming back?
I think he's absolutely back.
I mean, I hope he's back.
So MLB.com released their draft predictions. Zane Denton's not in it. They don't think he's getting picked.
Then he's back.
Chase Dollander, Andrew Lindsay, Maui Ahuna, Andrew Lindsay. I said Andrew Lindsay twice. Jared Dickey and Seth Halverson. All 5 of them are predicted to go in the first 5 rounds.
Yeah, they're gone.
But Zane Denton's nowhere on the sheet. So if that's the draft grades he's getting, he's playing third base for the Vols next spring.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I guarantee you, after the 2 home runs, Carl said he hopes he comes back too. After the 2 home runs that he hit late in the season, oh man, he's going to be a hot commodity on the NIL market next spring. He'll make more money doing that for sure.
Yeah, and he's a Tennessee kid. He's from Nashville. You know, he's got a lot of opportunities to make good money. I think shortstop is going to be the most interesting because they've got Austin Jaslove. He's from there in Knoxville. Jared Dickey's a redshirt sophomore. So Carl just said, I thought Dickey was a sophomore. He's a redshirt sophomore. So he's had his 3 years of college and he's projected in the top 5 rounds of the draft. So he actually today put an Instagram post out saying, basically, thank you. It's been a great run. So he has clearly received his draft grade and he knows he's gone.
You could kind of tell by his body language after that last game in Omaha that that was probably it for him.
Yeah. So we're losing those 5 in the draft. Griffin Merritt, Christian Scott, and Camden Sewell all graduate. They will not be drafted. So I think let's go position by position because I think there's some really fascinating stuff at play here. So at catcher, we have Cal Stark returning. Hopefully he and Josh Elander become best friends for the next 6 months and he learns how to hit his body weight. That would be a huge positive. Instead of having an automatic out in the batting order every game. Then you got Charlie Taylor. It'll be fascinating to see what happens with him. He might be a kid that ends up in the portal because there just may not be a spot for him. They redshirted Ryan Miller this year.
But let's say something though. Let's say something about that though. That job was Charlie Taylor's to lose this year.
It was, and he lost it.
And he lost it. Exactly. And it all came down to hitting. Neither him nor Cal Stark could hit the ball well. It just so happened that Cal Stark was mildly better at the plate. So
well, and pitchers look more comfortable with Cal Stark. I think that's what won the job more than anything was the pitching staff seemed to always be more comfortable when Cal Stark was behind the plate. So I think that's what really kept him in the lineup. But there's a couple of interesting dynamics here. Ryan Miller redshirted this year. He is probably the best offensive catcher of the 3 of them. I think he will be in the lineup somewhere next year, maybe as DH, maybe as the number 2 catcher. But here's the other thing that matters. The starting catcher at North Carolina State is a kid named Cannon Peebles. He was freshman All-American this year.
And if your first name's Cannon, you're a good player. I mean, that's just unwritten law of the universe.
He hit over 350 with 12 bombs as the starting catcher at NC State.
His name's Cannon. He has to be good.
Think Tommy Tanks 2.0. Like this is Tommy Tanks all over again. He's in the portal, and Tennessee is after him really hard. He's number 1 priority in their transfer list. So if they get him, you have to think Charlie Taylor immediately enters the portal. He's gone.
Yeah.
Cal Stark probably moves back to being the number 2 catcher, and Ryan Miller probably becomes our DH. But that kid at NC State, if we get him, all of a sudden, I mean, think about the impact Tommy Tanks had at LSU this year. and this kid's numbers are almost identical, and he's a freshman All-American catcher. So, catcher is going to be a really interesting thing to watch. First base, you got Blake Burke, really nobody else. The Inslee kid will probably return for his 4th year. He'll be his backup. There's not really anything else to say there. Christian Moore has second base.
Hang on just a second. We got some some comments coming through here. Carl wished the best to Jared Dickey. Absolutely. Brandon Clark. Brandon, welcome. Glad to have you with us, man. He said, "Hey, Coach, love the podcast. Keep up the good work." I appreciate that. Former player of Ruston's there. Glad you're with us, Brandon. Mr. Jones bringing the heat again. I love it. He would be insane not to come back. I'm sorry, that one got me. That's good, man. I love it. That's great. Mr. Jones said Maui kind of underperformed at the plate. He was okay, but not as good as we had hoped. His fielding is elite, though. 100% agree. Absolutely. There was obviously some back issues mid-season, but you're exactly right. At the plate, it was frustrating at times because Maui, if somebody's taking aggressive swings, that's one thing. But if they're just wasting swings, fanning at the ball, that's a whole different thing. That's one thing people are going to love about Jared Dickey, and I would bet money Jared Dickey ends up as like a leadoff hitter somewhere. At the worst, probably a 2-hole hitter, because Jared Dickey doesn't waste swings, and he gets his money's worth. When he goes up there, he is swinging the bat, man. He's not waiting around. He is attacking the ball, and he always makes contact. Always. That's why. I mean, you think about last year on Tennessee's team last year that was arguably one of the best in college baseball history. When they were playing their best, Jared Dickey was the leadoff man, and then he got hurt and he couldn't finish the year. So, Maui can't just fan at the ball like that. And, obviously that's going to be a minor league program, rookie league ball team that's going to be teaching him that next year. Let's see. Zach said Maui didn't have a whole season. That's right. He didn't. He was hurt for part of it. You're exactly right. Carl said part of that's due to SEC pitchers. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
Although when he got healthy,
when
he got healthy in the regional, the super regional, and the College World Series, he was facing everybody's best, and that dude swung the bat really, really well.
He had a great College World Series. I mean, he hit, I think, over 400 in the College World Series.
Yeah.
Like, he had a great College World Series. Brandon said he always has a quality at bat. Talking about Jared Dickey. Absolutely.
That's a quad.
Yeah. That's Jared Dickey he's exactly right. I mean, he always does.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time he gets his money's worth at the plate. Carl said Maui's home run shocked me. Yeah, that was a pretty sweet opposite field home run he hit in the College World Series. Absolutely. So second base, Christian Moore. We're assuming that he's going to remain at second base.
Yeah, he will. Shortstop, Maui's gone. Zane will be back at third. But here's where it gets interesting.
So let me say we're assuming he's remaining at second base because he could play outfield. Like he started left field like 3 or 4 times last season. So when Jared Dickey was hurt. But I mean, more than likely he'll probably be at second base.
Yeah. When I say what I think is going to happen in the outfield, I think it'll explain why I think Christian Moore stays at second. But you've got Jake Kendrow coming back. You've got Austin Jaslove coming back. Both of those guys are very capable. They'll be fighting for that shortstop job. But you've also got 4 incoming freshmen. And everybody always seems to forget this. Right now, Tennessee has the #1 recruiting class in America. Okay. And we've got 4 incoming freshman infielders that can play. I mean, these are some of the best players in the country. They're led by a guy
Jake
named
Rucker's little brother.
Yeah. So Carson is definitely in the top 3, but there's probably 2 better than him. So Blake Krimmer is probably the cream of the crop. He is a huge middle infielder. big arm, huge right-handed bat, hits it a ton, runs like a deer. Like, he is an absolute five-tool player, and he will be in the lineup somewhere. He might be at DH. He might win the shortstop job. He's going to be in the lineup somewhere. He's one of the best high school players in America by a lot. Then they have a kid out of Nashville from Lipscomb Academy named Hunter High. Hunter, I think, is probably their third baseman of the future. I think they probably let him back up Zane, and he probably gets some reps from time to time in midweek games and blowouts. But Hunter High is a name to listen to for the future. That dude hits it a ton. Really strong right-handed arm, massive, strong left-handed bat. Has highlight reel after highlight reel of bombs he hit in high school that high school kids shouldn't be able to hit. And then you've got Carson Rucker, who is, as Evan said, Jake's younger brother. Great player, utility guy, can play any infield position. And then there's also a middle infielder named Camden Bates. He probably projects more as a second baseman long term, maybe a center fielder. But all of these guys are crazy talented, and they're going to push for time. They're gonna make it known, and I could easily see Blake Grimmer winning that shortstop job.
There's another kid. I think he's from Sevierville. His last name's Loy. Brandon Loy, maybe?
Dylan
Loy. He is back-to-back Tennessee Baseball Player of the Year.
Yeah.
TSSAA Baseball Player of the Year. Back-to-back seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's awesome.
He received he's just going to pitch. He received national votes for Gatorade High School Pitcher of the Year this year. He's the real deal.
So, I mean, that kid's going to see the mound.
Yeah, we'll get to the pitchers in a second. So let's talk outfield. Here's what I think is going to happen in the outfield. I think to start, it's going to be Dylan Dreiling in left, Hunter Ensley in center, and Kavaris Tears in right. But there's two guys that are going to be breathing down those guys' necks in Kyle Booker and Reese Chapman. Reese Chapman was a freshman this year, huge bat, got some at-bats from time to time, but was just sitting behind Jared Dickey and Griffin Merritt and just didn't get a chance. That dude.
I wish that kid.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I so wish he got more at-bats because he has a beautiful swing.
Yeah.
Like, it is so fluid. It is so natural. Like, he is – I love to see that guy hit because it's just if you take like a instructional tape on how to hit, how to swing, and you can like put him on the tape. I mean, like, it is a beautiful swing.
Yeah. So there's that kid. There's Kyle Booker, who knows where he fits into all this. And then Cole Eaton, who is one of the top high school outfielders in America, has signed, incoming freshman. It's going to be real interesting to see who wins those outfield positions because there's a lot of competition. And they're after Ryan Galaney, who is this year he started every game at third base for Wofford, but he's a utility guy. He can play anywhere. Big, strong right-handed bat. I could easily see them moving him to right field if Kavaris Tears doesn't play well. He's got a huge arm. He could easily play right field. So that's another kid to watch out for that had a huge year this year at Wofford. I think he hit 17 or 18 home runs, batting average well over 300. Southern Conference Player of the Year. He's on their radar and they're actively pursuing him. And I could easily see them moving him into one of those outfield spots.
The name that intrigues me the most out of all the ones you just said is Kyle Booker. Because a kick and flat out play. He's good. But he hadn't been able to consistently win a spot yet. So it makes you wonder if he's still on the team come next spring.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be very interesting to see. But he's good. He's a good player.
I think if we get Ryan Galaney and you hear that he's been listed as utility, I think Kyle Booker hits the portal at that point, because that means they're putting him in the outfield.
Mr. Jones said, "Who is the recruit that's playing baseball and football?" I can't remember his name. I know you're talking about, but I can't remember who he is.
It's Amari Jefferson. He's at Baylor School in Chattanooga. He is already committed for baseball. He's actually in the 24 class. He's already committed for baseball, and Josh Heupel and company are actively trying to convince him to sign for football as well. He's gotten a lot of noise. He's one of the top 15 rated wide receivers in America in the 24 class. Big time outfield prospect, but also a big time wide receiver prospect. And he's one of the few kids that actually could do both in college. So it'll be very interesting to see if they're able to close the deal on that. But technically, he is already committed to Vol baseball. So you would have to think that Vol football are the front runners there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's only an hour and 15 minutes away from where he is right now. So that doesn't stink.
Yep.
Carl said, Carl, so this is actually something that our dad was talking to us about during the College World Series. He said, our guys look like kids. Ever notice South Carolina fields 27-year-olds that self-identify as 19-year-olds? Checking birth certificates and stuff is what we need to be doing. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like you look at some of the players from, like our dad was saying, like some of these guys that you see from like LSU and stuff like that, they step in the box and they're just like physically intimidating.
Yeah.
You know how many guys like that? And I get that.
Cade Beloso at LSU looks like a 36-year-old that runs a construction company during the week.
That's the best line maybe ever uttered in Volbro's history right there. That's great. I'm gonna make that a short. Let's see. That's hey now it's a Tennessee podcast. Now it is a Tennessee podcast. He said, I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, Peyton being at the games, do y'all think he gets in the players' heads? Maybe
he was there for the Stanford game.
So that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think part of the problem in football, at least, was Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt. I think that was part of the reason, and Derek Dooley. I think that was part of the reason why that was even became a thing about a curse, because Peyton, I mean, if you're Peyton, you're playing NFL football for majority of those years, like you're only going to come back for the games that are like really, really big games, you know? And unfortunately, over the last 15 years, when they're playing Alabama or Georgia, we hadn't had as good as players as them. But you see this year, you know, we can match them, and because of Josh Heupel. And so in the Bama game, Peyton's in the stands, and then he's hanging out in the locker room after with the players. So I mean, I think a lot of it is just talent, really, is what happens. And I think now we're starting to have the talent that we can compete with people. You know, even in baseball, our pitching staff could compete with anybody, and I think they showed that. It was our bats this year that let us down. Our pitching staff was fantastic. I mean, it was wonderful. It was fun to watch them pitch, and I'm excited to see Drew Beam throw again next year. Carl said we need the bats to score to create enough of a lead to give them playing time. Yeah, and get some of the younger guys in there. Mr. Jones said the LSU pitcher needs his mustache checked for tackling football. We go too fast to have time to think. Go too fast to have time to think. Yeah, I mean that's one of the beauties of it is. Listen, if you're a defensive back, consider this: you're a defensive back for a team playing Tennessee, and you just ran 50 yards down the field, and you can't stop covering the guy because you know Joe Milton he could throw it 80 yards down the field if he wanted to. So if you're on the opposite 10-yard line, you cannot you're still running at the other 30 at the other end of the field. You got to keep running because Joe can still throw it that far. And so then you stop and you turn around and you're like, well, they didn't throw it down here. And then you got to run all the way back knowing they're literally, as soon as they get back to the line of scrimmage, the ball's being snapped again. And so you're right. I mean, logistically speaking, they have zero time to think. because those defensive backs, they go taking off down the field. They run all the way back because that receiver, he's not coming out of the game. All that defensive back is hoping is maybe this next play will be one of those plays they run where this guy gets a play off since he just ran down the field. That's what he's thinking during as they're running back to the line of scrimmage. He's not thinking about other stuff. He's thinking about, man, I hope they run one of those plays where only that side of the field runs routes this time, because I just ran my tail off down the field trying to chase this guy. I mean, that's what he's thinking. So, I mean, you're right. They legit don't have time to think, because they're trying to play catch up. Honestly, they're trying to play catch up, trying to get back to the line of scrimmage because they know the ball's about to be snapped again. Let's see. Carl said, I think mostly sophomores as starters for first time was a big reason why we saw, like no physically impressive dudes.
There is some truth to that. I think one major issue we have is we have a little too much talent. The reason South Carolina was so good this year was they had a ton of veteran guys. Well, they had a ton of veteran guys because none of those guys got drafted the last 3 years. So, they had a bunch of guys hang around for a long time, and they just progressively got better and better and better. But, year, 2, 3 years ago, they weren't draft prospects. And so they, one thing that hurts us is our guys are talented, and so they leave early.
Yeah. Well, and even then, when you consider if they do hang around, like Jordan Beck, he was a physically impressive dude.
Yeah.
But Drew Gilbert, he wasn't physically impressive. But man, he's the announced best prospect in the Astros organization right now. Like their number one prospect in their organization. And so the thing about him, I guess people might have been intimidated because dude was crazy. Like he would get in the box and like you knew the dude was crazy. And that may have gotten in people's heads. I don't know. But I mean, some of the stuff he did, what is he, like 5'10"? I mean, he's not big.
Yeah, if that.
If that. I mean, he might be 5'9" or 5'8".
Yeah, probably more like 5'9".
And so, I mean, you think about the ball that he hit over the scoreboard to beat Wright State. I mean, that was just crazy. I mean, that's one of the farthest hit balls I've ever seen. A lot of power came in small package, and that dude there, man, he was dynamite.
Let's talk about the pitching staff because I think I'm most excited about that group.
All right, I'll come back to that comment because I didn't get a chance to read it there.
They're both about football.
Okay, cool.
So assuming Chase Burns returns, and I'm sure part of this conversation is he gets to go back to being a starter. Okay, that's great, fine. I think we end up with 3 right-handed starters: Chase Burns, Drew Beam, and AJ Russell. But here's what I'm most excited about. And I think we legitimately, and I'm not just saying this as a Vol fan, I'm saying this as a former baseball coach who's also a former pitcher. I think we have the best pitching staff in America coming back. And let's listen to the options here. So you got those 3 as your starters. Here are your right-handers out of the bullpen. Bryce Jenkins, who throws mid to upper 90s and just didn't get a whole lot of opportunities this year, but when he did, he was electric. Aaron Combs, who had a huge year. Hollis Fanning.
You can tell Vitello trusts Combs.
Oh, yeah. And he comes from a weird arm slot, so it makes him really, really effective. Hollis Fanning, who throws mid 90s all the time and could easily get into upper 90s with another off-season workout program. Zach Joyce, who we really didn't get to see much of this year, who also throws mid 90s.
Barely saw him at all.
All right, those are the returning right-handers. Listen to the returning left-handers. Xander Sechrist, who probably needs more mound time. Kirby Cannell, who we all trust completely. And a guy that was totally forgotten because he had Tommy John surgery this year, Wyatt Evans, who threw a ton of innings last year and never stepped on a mound this year. And everybody kind of forgot. Well, he's back. He's throwing. Like, he's going to be at full speed by next year. So you've got 7 big-time relievers right there that you can go to. But, oh, by the way, Dylan Loy, who's one of the top left-handed high school pitchers in America and just received votes for National Pitcher of the Year. Derek Schaefer, who might be one of the best right-handed high school pitchers in America, who also received votes for National Pitcher of the Year. And if y'all want to see a show, go pull up Derek Schaefer's highlight reels. He's throwing mid-90s consistently as a high school senior, and he's growing. Like, you can see it. He's a long, lanky kid. He's going to get a lot bigger. We might be seeing the next Paul Skeens. Like, he's going to continue to increase. I would not doubt at all if by next spring he's in the upper 90s, maybe 100.
Well, and just to validate what you're saying there was a tweet about Brett Lauder from Wake Forest today. And it was talking about how as a high school junior, he was throwing 78 miles an hour. That was it. Then as a high school senior, he was throwing 85 miles per hour. And it just shows how perseverance, takes over, because as a senior at Wake Forest, he was throwing between 93 to 96 miles an hour. And so when you say a kid's throwing upper 80s, low 90s as a high school senior, you can add, that kid hadn't been in a college strength program yet. You can add probably 3 to 4 miles per hour on that fastball. And that's what, at least, that's what we're going to see. Look at Lauder. He jumped almost 10.
Yeah. And if their wingspan is significantly longer than their height, it means they're still growing, and they're going to keep adding velocity. And anybody who turns on Derek Schaefer's video will see quickly his arms are crazy long. Like, that kid is still growing, and he's throwing mid 90s. He's consistently 94, 95, and he's still growing. So he's going to easily by next spring be up high 90s, maybe even 100. And this is one of the top high school pitchers in America. And so now you add those two in the mix. So now you've got 9 guys in the bullpen, 5 right, 4 left, who you can trust. And, oh, by the way, VolQuest is reporting that Wichita State's top reliever is about to transfer to UT. So the pitching staff is not going to miss a beat. It's going to easily be the best in the country. Tons of weapons, tons of options. Our hitting may not always have to be fantastic, because our pitching is going to keep us in every game.
Yeah. Well, they need a strong, hard-throwing left-hander. That's what they need. And because Kirby and Xander are both excellent, off-speed pitchers, but neither one of them have a dominating fastball.
Yeah.
And so, like, if there's one thing that they could shoot for, it would be somebody that's a hard-throwing left-hander.
Well, if you remember, Wyatt Evans was low to mid 90s, and Dylan Loy is low to mid 90s, and he's still growing as well. So he could easily be mid 90s by next spring.
Yeah, and that would be wonderful, because that's the only thing missing from that bullpen or from that pitching staff right now. Yeah, we need a switch pitcher like that dude. Who was it? What team was it this year that had a switch pitcher?
Mississippi State, and he got rocked.
Yeah.
To the point that he had mental issues, and they had to take him off the team.
Yeah. It was impressive, though, watching him pitch. Like,
it was crazy impressive until he had a breakdown.
Think about if he's throwing against Zane Denton. So you got a switch pitcher against a switch hitter. How does that work? Do you try to wait for the guy to get in the box, and then you just put the glove on the other hand real quick? And how?
So technically, he had the ability to switch the glove every pitch, because he had that 6-finger glove. So he would just alter it back and forth based on what he wanted to throw. He did that a few times during the season, where he threw both arms to the same hitter.
If you got a switch hitter coming in there, you just stand there waiting for the guy to get in the. There's a clock on the hitter just like there is the pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he's on the rubber, that dude's got to get in the box. That's all he's got to do. Just step off the rubber, switch gloves, and then go right back into it. That's a unique advantage. The batter has to bat how he stepped up to the plate. Same with the pitcher. Oh, okay, I got you.
In Major League Baseball, not in college. In college, he can switch every single pitch if he wants to.
Let's see here. Carl said that the Drew Gilbert home run was the best moment ever. I agree. Okay, so Mr. Jones, let's go back to his comment earlier. Let's see. He said the funny thing is, but other teams still don't know how the Vols football offense works. It's got built-in option routes depending on what the defender does. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's why it's not a gimmick. It's just good. It's just really, really good. Carl said, I loved it when Hooker told the reporter, not my fault DBs couldn't cover my receivers. Yeah, that was pretty good. I like that one too. Absolutely. So when you're looking at Vol baseball for next year, you got to be excited about what is there. Because you got guys like Reese Chapman, Kavaris Tears, all these guys that are going to be coming off the bench that probably would have been playing most other Power 5 schools this year. Like I said, Reese Chapman, man, I'm so excited to see that kid play more. It's an exciting thing. And, this year the Tennessee lineup was very, very heavy left-handed hitter lineup. That could be more balanced next year. We'll have to wait and see. But it's nice having dudes like Zane Denton that are switch hitters. But we'll see. This year Hunter Inslee. If there was a right-handed pitcher, so Zane was hitting left-handed. The only right-handed hitters in the lineup would have been Cal Stark, Hunter Inslee, and Griffin Merritt when he DH'd. That was it. And so very heavy left-handed hitting lineup. So hopefully that'll be a little bit more balanced next year.
Whoever ends up playing shortstop, I think their top 3 options all hit right. And then if they get the catcher transfer from NC State, he's a right-handed power hitter. So they'll have a little more balance. I think it'll be more 50-50 right versus left. And then it'll be interesting to see how they platoon, Kavaris Tears in right field. They can platoon that position, righty lefty. I don't think
Carl's right. Thank you. I forgot about Christian Moore. He's exactly right. That's another left-handed hitter. So there were always 3.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't think they'll platoon Dylan Dreiling. I think they'll let him play every day.
Tony V likes him some Dylan Dreiling.
Yeah,
he was always the first guy in the pinch hit every game.
I think he sees the same thing I see. I think we're watching the second coming of Drew Gilbert. There's so many similarities in his game, and I could easily see next year when Hunter Inslee graduates, Dylan Dreiling moving to center field and becoming Drew Gilbert.
That wouldn't stink if that ended up happening. Mr. Jones said Joe Milton can probably throw 100+ mile per hour change. Maybe. I mean, I'd be curious to find out how fast he really could throw the ball. Carl said our team will be better than this year, and we still made it to the College World Series. I mean, potentially. We'll see what happens, but they're going to have pitching, and that's the most important thing in the game. So if they can start hitting the ball well, then yeah, you might be exactly right. Absolutely. They had a tremendous year this year, no doubt. Well, awesome. Well, that was the 50th episode. That's big time, man. Big time. We so appreciate everybody joining us because that's what makes us fun. We love talking about this, and we love talking to you guys about this. We love the Vols, and we love talking about the Vols to other people who love the Vols. And so we're so fortunate to have all these folks who always join in with us and talk with us, and we so appreciate all of you that do that. Thank you so much. It's been 50 really fun episodes, and we're excited for the next 50. We got SEC Media Days coming up in just a couple weeks, and so it'll be fun to talk about that coming up. I got some ideas. I'm going to try to get Reed Carringer back on the show to give us a little preview of. We're going to predict who we think's going to SEC Media Days for Vol football. I'm excited about that. Reed, I hadn't asked Reed yet. I'm just hoping that he says yes. He said he'd come back, so I'm going to ask him. Carl said, congratulations. Love your show. Thank you so much, Carl. We really appreciate that. We love it too. We have fun. It's a good time. We enjoy it. So we really, really, really do love the fact that y'all join us every time. It's awesome. We hope everybody has a wonderful evening. Thank you, Rustin, so much for doing all the research on the baseball team of who's returning, who's coming in. Thank you so much for doing all that research. That was all Rustin. I did not do any of that. Mr. Jones is probably right. If anybody's curious who Mike Matthews is, that is a wide receiver that is currently, he just finished an official visit this weekend at Tennessee. All reports is that he absolutely loved it. Then Boo Carter tweeted out this very cryptic thing, well, it wasn't very cryptic. He said, all I can say is go Vols, baby. And Austin Price, this is what made it more interesting. Austin Price quote tweeted Boo Carter's tweet and said, wow, the tease level on this is incredible, with the little meme or the gif of the kid with the Derek Jeter respect hat going like that, So Mike Matthews, I 100% think he's going to be a Tennessee Volunteer. That's just me personally. I don't talk to him, so I don't know. I'd love to say hey to him sometime if I meet him. But based on everything that's being said, I think it's going to happen.
I'll take it a step further. I texted this to Evan a couple of weeks ago. I think we're going to get at least 5, maybe 6 5-stars in this 24 class. And 3 of them are defensive linemen, which makes it even better.
Yeah, absolutely. Rodney Garner, he's doing some work right now for sure.
If we get all 3 5-star defensive linemen that I think we're going to get, and we already got one of them, if we get the other 2, there better be a pretty substantial pay raise coming Rodney Garner's way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Carl likes that. That's what I'm talking about. Mr. Jones said we need those guys. Absolutely. And I agree. If we get all these people, then Mr. Jones is exactly right. The Vols are going to end up with the top 5 class.
Oh, probably top 3. If we get all the guys that I think we're going to get, it'll be a top 3 class.
That doesn't stink. It's about the Jimmys and Joes. But as we've seen, Heupel can do a lot with any Jimmys and Joes.
Right.
And that's very impressive. Well, we bid adieu to a wonderful baseball season, a wonderful school year in which basketball, men's and women's, go to the Sweet 16. Softball and baseball go to the College World Series. Football wins a New Year's Six bowl game. It really is an everything school. We actually have our buddy Ricky, who is our correspondent in the Battle for Atlantis. He said, y'all need to make a everything school shirt. I was like, you're right. We need to do that. So I did it. We're deciding, we had a bunch of different options. So we're deciding which one we like the best, and it'll be on our site soon. But this year, man, it's exactly right. That's exactly right, Carl. It is an everything school. And that was proven this year. So as we bid adieu to baseball and the trip to Omaha, and we turn our attention to football now, this is a big ceremonial thing here. I'm going to transition to the football outro instead of the baseball. When we started the show with the baseball, but now all of our attention is turning to football. So,
and this is Joe Milton at the Manning Passing Academy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Oh, no, this is okay. Okay, hang on. We do have to talk about this. Mr. Jones said, do y'all think when a player picks Tennessee, they drop their rating on purpose? Okay, now here's what's interesting. Today, a 3-star defensive player committed to Georgia. And somebody said they quote to it, because, On3 does the really cool little graphics every time a player commits anywhere. And they have like the rating of the player. They say this guy just, committed so wherever school. So somebody quote tweeted that, and they said, like, $10 says he jumps up to a 4-star next week. And I think there's actually some truth to that based on what people in the industry have said. If a kid commits somewhere, all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, did we miss this guy? And they go look at him and they're like, oh man, he actually really is a good player. Okay, yeah, we need to bump him up. Like the country's big.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of kids, a bunch of schools and high schools in the country. You're going to miss some sometimes. That's why That's why people are paying. The recruiting offices and all these schools. That's why they're paying these people so much money to go out and find the people that other people are missing.
Yeah.
And so it will be interesting to see where that kid ends up, because right now he's a 3-star.
I can tell you one recruiting service who does not do that, and that is On3. Because currently VolQuest is the #1 selling subsidiary of On3. So they are not going to bite the hand that feeds them. They're making a lot of money off Tennessee fans.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep. On3 does like Tennessee right now. That's for sure. ESPN, maybe that the college football playoff committee, they are Tennessee haters.
I don't even look at ESPN's recruiting rankings. I'm not sure they actually watch kids. I think they just randomly pick stuff and go, yeah, he kind of looks like this.
Yeah, they had I can't remember who it was. They had somebody like as not even a top 300 player in the country, and everybody else had him as like a top 100 player. I can't remember who it was now, but well, hey, we appreciate everybody joining us. This has been a lot of fun. Great job this year, Tennessee Athletics. Danny White, you're the man. And let's all do what Danny said. Text a buddy about the Vol Bros, because I think we got some fun stuff happening here. So
we're 39 away from 1,000. 39.
We would love it if you haven't already subscribed. We love it if you subscribe. That'd be awesome. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. That'd be fantastic, actually, if we could reach that number. So hey, text a buddy. We'd appreciate it. We appreciate that, Carl. Thank you, man. We hope everybody has a wonderful evening, and we will see everybody very, very soon. And if we stick to our statistical average in 4.7 days. So we will see everybody very soon. Everybody have a great evening. Go Vols, baby. Go Vols.